Breeze forward. Going all in. Oh, that's a good one.
Can see through you, see your true colors.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And in this episode, we're going to get into that 351 contact that Dylan made in her phone and see if we can't put together the most plausible scenario from where that came from. Because in the end, if they're going to hide all of the information from us, then we're left with nothing to do but speculate. But if we're going to speculate, let's speculate based on reality, not on fantasy. And in a video I did yesterday, because we've got the new released police body cam of the questioning of Molly McMichael, well, if you listen to that, you've sure pick up on a lot. Now, make no mistake, when I'm discussing what Molly said to the officers, I'm not in any way insinuating that Molly is a trustworthy witness. But you've got to think about it in these terms. When you think about somebody like Molly, with all of the body cam we see with her run-ins with the law, her trying to manipulate the law whenever she's arrested. Oh, I've got to testify. You know, they're gonna kill me. You know, I got to testify. I mean, she is a plotter and a schemer. So she wasn't born yesterday. When you listen to her statements to law enforcement, apparently we now know that somebody that had a close relationship to her, that lived with her, was found dead in a bathtub. So her husband, her first husband, her and him were breaking in on a guy trying to steal his backpack full of meth, and then he got shot. Now we find out that somebody else died in her bathtub, and this is the third incident of this nature that she's actually been involved in. This lady was not born yesterday when you're thinking in terms of a criminal mind, okay? So when you listen to what she says, you can't believe every word that she says. Number one, we know that. But number two, you cannot discount every word that she says. You have to be able to determine what would she have lied about and what would she have told the truth about. And when you start to really think about it, when you have somebody, especially that's experienced in lying to law enforcement, well, the smart thing for them to do is to lie about the things that they don't want them to know, but tell the truth about almost everything else, because that's the only way that they can tell a believable story. And it is verified as you listen to her that she was aware, maybe even thought there was more cameras than there were, but she was aware that she was caught on camera that evening. And from the way that she was explaining things, it almost seems like, because at one point she said, well, I don't think the cameras would have caught me there because of the bushes. It almost seems like that she thought that there was more cameras than there were that could have caught her. So when she's telling stories about where she was, where she parked, how long she was there, what she was doing, you can bet those are true, because she in her mind thinks she's on camera and they're seeing all this. So she's going to have to tell the truth about where she was at certain times. So you can glean a lot of truth from her statement. You just have to understand, what would she have lied about? What would she have omitted from her statement? That's why when she sees the guy pull around in the silver car, she sees Tisdale. She knows that wasn't part of anything she was scheming on. That was just some guy that she had seen. So she definitely wanted to give the information about that. But she actually never mentions the guy that pulls out at 3:53, the one that Payne put in his report that she thought she was confused and seen. She never mentions them. And it tells me if she's leaving that out, then that's probably somebody that had something to do with the crime. She doesn't want to mention anything about that. But as we get into this, we're going to talk about Dylan, that contact at 351. They don't want to give us who it was. Well, we'll put it together anyways. We'll speculate till the cows come home, but we're going to do it in a way that meets reality of this case, not clickbait, frat nonsense. David Barracoa, y'all, give me a break. If David Barracoa went up against Xana, for example, and he was the one that was fighting her for 50, plus wounds, and she was fighting like she was, he'd been head to toe, cut up, bruised up. I mean, he would have been the easiest person to spot from 1,000 miles away. Look at that kid. You really think he has the ability to go in and unalive 4 people with a knife inside of a few minutes? Come on. That's even less believable than Kohberger. And how people that can believe that Kohberger didn't do this and think somebody like David Barracoa could is beyond me on, it's kind of like my haters out there. I mean, the reason most of these people out there hate old Pav and try their best to discredit old Pav, I don't even care about them anymore because they're meaningless. If you listen to any of them that puts out videos constantly trying to, number one, follow my content almost every time, but number two, try to act smart and paint Pav as being dumb. If you listen to them for 5 minutes, you can see that they have about as much, their candle's about as bright as, a candle in a hurricane windstorm. That's how bright they are. They're sharp as a bowling ball. And one thing is for sure, if they've got a little, whatever you call it, the little thing that shows your picture when you're not talking, and you look at that and then you click on their video and then the person that's real face pops up, doesn't look anything like that little picture, I think YouTube should outlaw that because that's kind of like catfishing in my opinion. But anyways, when you're going through and you're looking at the evidence of the case and you're doing it in the proper way and you're taking everything into account, the picture that it paints is a picture that's very easy for everybody to see. Let's go ahead and paint the picture around this particular incident and see if we can't get as close to the truth as possible. You ready? Let's go. Now, one piece of information I think is kind of huge that we can gather from Molly's testimony in the, or when Molly's questioning anyways, especially of the FBI lady, is right here is Pullman, this is Moscow. Right here is where Jack in the Box is in Pullman. Now, I always thought that the DoorDash driver, Molly or whoever, would have come out of Jack in the Box and then gone up to North Terreview and across Airport and around this way. And I thought that because we've seen Molly in one of her many run-ins with the law and the body cam actually be pulled over up here on Airport and North Terre. So I thought that would have been her route of travel. But she explicitly states in the interview that night she did not go. She actually says she did not go Airport. She said in the 3 deliveries she made to the King Road neighborhood, all of them, she took the main highway across and into the neighborhood. Now, here's what's weird is, again, here's Jack in the Box. Here's Kohberger's apartment right here. And if you think about it, they say Kohberger came down and this is the route that he took where he's caught on camera at Floyd Cannabis Shop into the King Road or into Moscow. And Molly, during that exact same time, would have been taking this route, making a delivery, coming back. Taking this route, making a delivery, coming back. Taking this route, making a delivery. And one thing that she mentioned was she had somebody at Jack in the Box that was outside, one of her friends, I think she said, that was outside waiting on her on all 3 of those pickups, which, I have an idea who that friend could be. You probably do as well. But knowing that she took this route is key because it tells us which way she would have come in to the neighborhood. But what that does tell us is that Molly would come in on the main road here, which means she likely took Farm Road all the way down past Sigma Chi, past Chi Alpha, Kappa Alpha, on to Blake, down to Taylor, across Linda Lane, and into the King Road neighborhood. So come around south on Blake, west on Taylor, passing Linda Lane right here into the King Road neighborhood right here. And we know she pulled into the King Road neighborhood at 3:46:04 because we have video of her doing it. So we all know that from Linda Lane to right here on King, from timing about 1,000 vehicles 1,000 times, it takes anywhere from, say, 15 to 30 seconds, depending on how fast the vehicle's going, to get from Linda Lane to King Road. So we can put her passing Linda Lane somewhere in the neighborhood of 3:45 and 40 seconds. If we can ever get the real Linda Lane footage during that time, which I know exists because Get a Clue had at least a portion of it at one point, and we should have recorded it because he took everything down when he put all of his toys in his toy box and went off to play. But we can estimate 3:45 and 40 seconds she's here on Linda Lane. Now, I think this is interesting when you take the time frame of what we hear happening right here on Linda Lane with Gunreck Guy. We know around this same time, a vehicle pulls in here because we can clearly hear it. Gunreck Guy gets out, he talks to somebody, racks his gun, walks over to this spot right here, flashes his light, I believe, to signal the guy sitting in the car over here. And then he hangs out over here, goes back, does something in the car until about 3:50, where you see him walking across and disappearing right here. I believe continuing across and ending up over here just, a few minutes later. And then we've got the DoorDash saga going on at that time. But let's watch side by side this scenario right here at the time that the DoorDash driver would have been pulling through. And remember, 3:45 and 40 seconds is about the time, almost exactly, we can estimate that the DoorDash driver would have been right here. 3:46:04, we know she's pulling in. All right, you see Molly parking right there at roughly 3:46:45. Now, there's going to be a significant amount of time between 3:46:45 and when we see Molly walk out there and turn around and flash somebody with that flashlight. Let's talk about what could have happened during this time. Now, Molly says during almost this 5 minutes of time that she stood there and she looked in the window and seen people ducking down and thought, well, maybe that's not that house. So she said she walked up this way first to the back area of the King Road residence and saw that it was like a courtyard or something and, you know, looked like a nice place to live and all that. And then she spent a significant amount of time, we know, in this general area until we see her start walking out in front of 1112 and being caught on that camera at 3:51. But what happened during this time and what's the most logical thing? While she's in this area, wouldn't that have been the perfect time if she was meeting up with Dylan for the first time for her to meet up with her and create that contact in her phone, or at least get the contact information from her for her to enter it into her phone a few minutes later? Then Dylan goes back inside and Molly walks up, continues walking until we see her on camera stopping right here, in my opinion, checking to see if the coast is clear before turning around, signaling the guy that was sitting in the car there. Then she walks back to her car. That guy drives off, and then she pulls around behind the King Road residence, and we all know what happened from there. Now, this is about the time the clickbaiters will throw in things like, well, maybe it was David Baracoa. Give me a break. Or Jack D. Showalter and the Frats.
Please welcome to the stage, Jack D. and the Frets.
And in doing so, they'll ignore the only logical connection between a college student like Dylan and somebody like Molly McMethy. What other reason would they have for those two to possibly be associated? And we know that this young man, who says he has never even been to Moscow, was going to be a centerpiece at the trial for some reason. You can bet it's from phone conversations with Dylan. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why his name shows up on the state's witness list. If he's never been to Moscow, he's only on this witness list to corroborate what Dylan has said that's happened that night, because she's obviously been on the phone with her boyfriend. And then the fact that the defense lists him as a witness as well, you can bet there was going to be something going on around Quinn Kelly. And there was probably a lot of suspicion around him, as we found in those police reports from surveillance of those young men in Boise, Idaho. Now, we've talked many times about contacts being made in a phone. Right? And typically you're not just sitting in your room, because there is, according to the text message record and phone record, there isn't any other calls or text around 3:51 for Dylan to have talked to somebody new and wanted to create a new contact in their phone. Now, it's quite possible that she was on Snapchat or Instagram or something like that. But if you think about it in those terms, Snapchat and Instagram, they have their own profiles. So why would they take a Snapchat profile and create a contact in their phone physically? Remember, a contact in your phone is a little different than, an online handle. Typically, when you create a contact in your phone, you're actually talking to somebody new that you didn't know, and you're putting them in as a contact. And according to everything that was going on in that house around that time, their friends had left. Supposedly Bethany's in bed, Dylan's in bed, and according to the mainstream moron narrative, they're all in bed, but we know they're not. So who would Dylan be talking to around that time to even get information to create a new contact? Well, when you start to look at the context around the proximity of where Molly McMichael was compared to where Dylan's bedroom is, and she learned of somebody new that she created a new contact in her phone from, then yeah, I think the evidence would suggest, based on everything that we know now, that was probably a contact that she put in her phone that she got from Molly McMichael. And it may have very well been Molly McMichael's contact information. Because remember, Molly wasn't working off of a regular contact at that time because they had to go through geofence warrants for AT&T phone companies, Google geofence warrants to locate a username, and then get other warrants to locate a phone number, other warrants to figure out it was even Molly. All that went through before she was ever brought in for that interview. It wasn't just like her popping in, hey, I was at that house. No, they had to find her through some serious investigating. So the contact she created in her phone, maybe it wasn't Molly McMichael, but maybe it was that Google username that she was using off of her phone that night to make those deliveries. That seems like the most likely person that she would have created a contact from would be Molly, because she was right there. And then it gets into other scenarios, because if that is the case, then that would lend to the assumption that there was an inside person in the house. And if there was an inside person in the house, then it would make sense why that inside person was not harmed, and why in her statement she said that she felt like she was being protected. But then you start to really think about it logically. We got Quinn Kelly on the defense and the prosecution witness list. He said he's never been to Moscow. So the only contact he could have to the case would be through Dylan. So would it make more sense that there was this big frat conspiracy and Quinn was, dealing with other frat boys to go in and do a hit? Or is it just a weird coincidence that his father is a known member of the Aryan Knights? What do you think? Put two and two together, and then everything starts to make logical sense in this thing. And until they release who that contact was, all we can do is speculate. But if we're going to speculate on what's likely the case, not frat nonsense. But let me just say this. It's October 31st, Halloween. I want to wish everybody out there a safe and happy Halloween. Halloween was always just a time where, we took the kids out to trick or treat. They got some candy. Nowadays, they're trying to make Halloween out like it's, like it's a real holiday like Christmas, which I think is kind of weird. But I know people are going to celebrate it or enjoy their time during this day. I don't know if it should be a holiday. But anyway, if we're going to partake and have a fun night, please be safe out there. And I will wish you a happy Halloween, I guess. But please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, your thoughts, your criticisms. Till next time, Pavarotti is out.
Until I walk